So narrative therapy is different in, well, similar and different in a number of different ways. Narrative therapy is something that has a lot in common with some of the other therapies that we've talked about, in that it really respects the individual who's coming to the table for counseling. It's non-blaming. It puts the client in the position as an expert. But what's different about narrative therapy is that there's more of a flow to it in many ways, because it's really about reconstructing and constructing new stories in your life that can be healing. And in that way, it's a little bit different from CBT, DBT, where you're working on specific skill sets. And they can feel more discrete, like here's one skill, I'm going to teach it to you. Narrative therapy has a little bit more of that feeling of a flow to it. It's a lot more casual in some ways. It can kind of sometimes feel like when you're in narrative therapy that you're just telling stories to each other. So in some ways, it can be very relaxing. It doesn't feel like there's that pressing thing. You have to grasp this skill before you leave today, you know, which sometimes people say skills-based therapies can feel that way for them. Narrative therapy is really just about widening your view, considering alternative ideas, telling stories, which is be very, very enjoyable for all human beings, as we talked about, but also in that way, being a space where you can be creative, where you can model empathy. There's just so many different types of approaches of narrative therapy that can make the person feel like this is just like a common everyday thing, which actually helps a lot of people relax and be less defensive about therapy in general. It's also something that they can carry with them. They don't have to necessarily, for example, okay, here's a skill that I'm working on. Maybe I need to take out my book to review it or take out a card to review it. You can tell yourself stories at any time. You can tell yourself stories while you're driving, while you're sitting around at your house, while you're taking a shower, so it can feel like it's very accessible to many people.